Slog FPV. When I started this journey, I really wanted to get a 5-inch sub 250 gram freestyle quad. This is the configuration I ended up with. I ended up with a session mount on it, session 5, with a 550 milliamp hour battery, and the all-up weight is around 371 grams approximately. But this is the configuration that I settled with. So next I'm going to go through the pros and cons of this quad, and with that, let's go ahead and dive into it.
So I put a couple of spreadsheets together so we could do a comparison between a typical 5-inch build and a bind and fly, which Sedora comes to mind for me, and then the 2Fiddy. Starting out with the cost of the build, and so you look at the frame. The 2Fiddy is quite a bit cheaper than the Apex, and of course the iFlight is pre-built. That's a total cost. And then as far as motors, I put the FPV Cycle, that's a premium motor in there, so that came out at $99. The iFlight has the Zing motors, and then the 2Fiddy has Tommy's motors that were built for this 2Fiddy, and they come in at $87.80 US. And then the flight stacks, they're all F7s. If you'll notice, the iFlight Beast is a pretty good value at $81.99. It's a all-in-one board. And then they all have the Nebula Pro, Caddx, Vista. And then for a buzzer, I put in a Finder 2 buzzer, and then a 5-volt buzzer on the 2Fiddy. And then the batteries listed here, China line batteries. I like those batteries, come in at $19.49. And the GMB 380 milliamp hours, which was spec for this build, comes in at $18.49. The 550 milliamp hour batteries are close to that, around $20. So they're all pretty close. Here's the props, and then the Apex, you're most likely going to be adding a mount, so that's $19. And then for the Sedora, the add-on is $25 for a mount, and then you'll have to print out a mount. I printed out a session mount, link below. So next we'll go ahead and go through the actual comparison spreadsheet that I did. Price, again, I felt the 2Fiddy is a good value. Apex, is more of a premium build, and then the iFlight Sedora is, I think, a good value. Frame design, I think there was a lot of thought put into the 2Fiddy designed by Tommy from Ummagawd. I think he did a great job trying to get it under 250 grams. The Apex HD, like we've stated, is kind of the golden standard out there. The iFlight Sedora frame, it's an average, good bind and fly frame. I don't think it, is as good as the Apex or the 2Fiddy. Being under 250 grams, of course, the 2Fiddy is about the only one, well, it is the only one that's under 250 grams. As far as freestyle performance, in the greater than 300 gram configuration with a Session 5 and the 550 milliamp hour battery 6S, my weight was coming in at 373 grams. I think it flies great for freestyle. And I would have given it a 3. It's just in the under 250 gram configuration, it just doesn't have enough mass to throw it around, and it just doesn't have any fling. And you can see that in my flight footage. Of course, the Apex HD, again, that's a premium build. Definitely a lot of freestyle pilots use that as a build with F7 processors and good motors, and there's a very good recipe for that. The iFlight Sedora, is a bind and fly, a lot of good reviews on it, so I gave it a 2. As far as noise, I give the 2Fiddy, it's very, very quiet, so that's why I gave it a 3. 3 being the highest and 1 being the lowest, obviously. The Apex and the iFlight Sedora, they're just way louder. I mean, they just bark. And where I like to fly, noises, a low noise 5-inch is very appealing to me. So definitely gave the 2Fiddy the 3 there. Flight time has very good flight time with the 380 milliamp hour 6S battery. I was getting consistent 4.5 minutes of freestyle flight. With the 550 milliamp hour 6S battery, even with the session 5, I was getting 5.5 minutes and then over 6 minutes without the session on it. And so definitely a 3 for flight time. The Apex, it's a lighter build than the Sedora, so gave that a 2, and then the iFlight a 1. A good, reasonable. It's just a heavier build by the time you put a larger camera on it. So as far as build, I think the 2Fiddy is an easy build. You can see my build video link below. The soldering was a little tight on some of the motor wires, but if you're good at soldering and you're a beginner, you should easily be able to build this. And the frame itself is very easy to put together. And the Apex is also a real good, well thought out frame. And of course, I gave them both 2s. Of course, the Sedora is a bind and fly, so you don't have to build anything. If you break an arm, of course, you're going to have to replace the arm, or motors. If you burn out a motor, you'll have to solder on a new motor. But gave it a 3 because you don't have to build it. So crash resistance. I definitely think the Apex is the best of the 3. The 2Fiddy, because it's lighter, you can see Tommy's crash test. I think it did quite well, and I think the reason why it did quite well is because it's a real lightweight 5-inch. The Sedora is fine. It's just not as robust as the Apex frame design. So overall scores, gave the 2Fiddy a 20, the Apex a 15, and a Sedora 14. Now, depending on you as a pilot and what is important to you, your score could be very different. For me, like, noise is very important, and that might not be important to somebody else. But out of the, a 5-inch build, I really like it a lot, and it's a good park flyer type solution, and that's where I like to fly. So next, I'm going to go ahead and show you a flight footage, and then we'll wrap it up with my final thoughts.
So the highlights, I think the stealthy quietness of this build, I really like it a lot. I'm the type of person that likes to, again, fly in parks. I know I've said that over and over and over, but that's just where I'm comfortable in flying, or at the back of my house next to the lake. And again, I don't want to disturb the neighbors too much, so being quiet is really important to me. As far as the build, as stated in my build video, I think the build is easy. As far as flight times, I felt like this thing did a great job with the 380 milliamp hour 6S battery. I was getting consistently 4.5 minutes of freestyle flight. With the 550 milliamp hour 6S GNB battery, I was easily getting 5.5 minutes with the session. And without the session, I was getting over 6 minutes. So lots of flight time. So that's another highlight. Also, it's very easy to fly. It does really good with freestyle if you're over 300 grams. So with the session on it and the 550 milliamp hour battery, had plenty of fling. It was very accurate, and I thought it was a great freestyle quad. And it definitely is on the light side. So if you like light 5-inch freestyle builds, this is definitely one for you. So let's talk about the low lights. I think in the sub 250 gram configuration, running the 380 milliamp hour 6S battery, the disc loading is just too light and it just doesn't have any fling. It's very easy to fly and very responsive again, but for doing freestyle, it's just doesn't have enough mass to effectively fly freestyle, at least at my skill level. So I would say that's a low light. And then lastly, the part availability. You know, some of the parts like the motors and stuff are going to be hard to get, but of course this year getting parts has been hard for any build that you're going to be doing. So do I recommend this? I definitely give this 2 big thumbs up, and this is one of the 5-inch quads I'm going to be flying a lot. So with that, thanks for watching my channel.